Shalom Chabrim, I'm Stephen Ben-Nun. You're watching Israeli News Live here on Patreon, and I wanted to share some more insights with you guys in light of the current news that's going on, as well as to kind of give you a little idea where we will be going on the August 4th conference in Orlando, in which, by the way, we're getting very close to capacity on that. If you're interested in attending, I still have about 20 seats available, and that will be August the 4th. Here in Orlando, actually called Ultimate Springs. So email us at stephenbenoon@gmail.com if you're wanting to be a part of that. Getting right into this, though, I want to kind of share a couple of different avenues here with you. The Russophobia is one thing I want to speak about, and also the New World Order, because in reality, I really feel like this is where all the politicians are taking us to begin with. And not only the politicians, but as well as the religious communities, the evangelicals, the Catholic Church, etc., all heading us right to a New World Order. And unfortunately, your pastor is not going to be willing to tell you the truth, especially if he's a 501c nonprofit organization. And some pastors are getting pretty sly about that. They say, no, we're not a 501c, because they use both. They use 501c, plus they use maybe a corporation to cover themselves as just as a means to say that they're not 501c. Maybe they're a sub-S or something like that, or even a individual sole proprietorship of that nature there. But they kind of hide the part about the 501c. We're not 501c. Period. Zero, zilch, won't have anything to do with it, because I know just how evil that is as well. Anyway, though, we're seeing so much Russophobia, as you see here, the Trump treasonous after siding with Putin on election meddling. And of course, as I stated before, I can kind of concur with the president when it comes to not trusting the intelligence community. And it's not to say that everyone in the intelligence community is bad. There are good guys and bad guys. There are very sinister guys as well. And there are very much huge cover-ups that have been going on for years. So I want to address that part first, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about the New World Order secondarily, just giving you a little bit more insight, since I shared with you the other day, and it's not something that I am proud of, but you know, I spent 6 years with the Central Intelligence Agency. I worked as a freelance, as a subcontractor, depending on what the need was and how I would work in whichever operation I would be used in that capacity. It's one reason why you will never see an admission that I ever worked with anyone or did anything. In fact, if anything, they will in the very near future try to deny that. They will do everything they can to cover this up, because there are so many politicians and high-ranking officials that have been involved in some of the most sinister crimes that you could ever imagine. And of course, the CIA operatives that have been involved in making sure people were silenced before anything could ever go public. That's another issue, which reminds me so much of the Clintons. Although I don't know personally about the Clintons, anyone that knows anything about them, and this was from the conspiracy school, and it's all considered a conspiracy at this point here, the CIA, cocaine, and Bill Clinton. And I would have to say allegedly, because I don't know the Clintons personally, and I never worked with any of the people that worked with them. But it is a very unusual situation as I read about the Clintons and see the mysterious deaths, including plane crashes, etc., and all the people that end up being silenced, whether they die of a gunshot wound or whether or not they have a heart attack or poisoning, or while they jumped off the building. Gosh, don't know why the guy wanted to jump. I've seen it. I've been there. And I've seen it very much myself, exactly those types of things that have happened. And my job, though, was not to take people out. I had a different specialty. And, but where I was needed, I would be used at. But the thing that concerns me most, though, is the whole issue of Russia. Powerful people in the U.S. sell their anti-Russian stance for their nation, says Putin on RT just recently. And it is true. It is very much true. I remember my very early days when I first began to do this work. I was shared detailed information about how a certain ship had went down and during World War II, and it was full of Russian spies that infiltrated the United States and had infiltrated all different aspects of the U.S. government. This was being told to me after there was a couple that had been taken out. and so I would better understand what the job was all about, why there is a focus to take certain individuals out in this world. But the odd thing is, and something I probably should have picked up on earlier, but I never really equated the two, because I was considered the good guy. I was the guy that really believed in the government of the United States, the Constitution. I was the type of guy that wanted to hold up the laws of the land and see all the bad guys put in prison. But at the same time, the ironic thing was I knew a lot of bad guys, and I knew a lot of the people that smuggled the drugs out of Central America and were bringing them up into the United States. Well, it just so happened that some of the agents I knew, and even politicians, were all friends. They were all part of the same circle. That was kind of awkward. But I never really thought about how that went together. I guess being young, you're a little bit more naive. All you can think about is wow, this is really great, man. I got introduced to the good guys and we're going to go fight crime together. That wasn't what happened. And it wasn't until I got an interesting phone call not too long ago, and I was being asked the question, what were you guys doing when such and such happened? Yeah. Kind of like the Clinton cases there, you know, where a whole string of people suddenly died. And for what? And I went back and I began to read the different articles about it. And then I realized I knew so many of the people that were involved. So many of the people that were even suspect, but of course no charges ever come up against them. I'm like thinking to myself, I know every one of them. We're talking about dozens of political leaders. We're talking about career politicians. We're talking about what they were only showing in these unsolved cases, by the way, that are still cold cases, as they would call them today. They're unsolved. They only were thinking, oh, this was a money laundering operation of, oh, $500,000 to $1 million or so, something like that. And I thought to myself, you have no idea. It was in the millions. Not pocket change. But after all, I began to piece more and more together and begin to understand more and more what really goes on in this nation. And I really begin to realize that what the Clintons, what's been written about the Clintons and all these alleged crimes that they've been involved in the smuggling of the drugs and things like that. And of course, you remembered Ronald Reagan, the war on drugs, and how they always wanted to try to get that famous guy down there, the big drug cartel from Mexico and Central America and all those places there. The different, not just one, there's more than one down there. And I began to realize, no, we were fighting a war on drugs to try to stop the competition. Because one governmental case, say for example, if you look at the Clintons, if they really truly were involved, which is kind of obvious, but I have to say alleged, but their conspiracy there, as the case goes, is they were involved in bringing in plane loads of drugs into Arkansas to the Mena Air Base there. I'm sure they were stepping on some big toes down there in Central America and other places, South America. And at the same time, all these arm deals that were arming the Contras in Nicaragua and places like that. Yeah, I know about those type things as well. But the difference was, I think we're after the bad guys. All we were doing was protecting the drug smuggling operations. And all the big names that you could ever imagine, judges, politicians, you name it, all involved in keeping things covered up. That's how you get all that stuff in to start with. You got to have some pretty good contacts. Well, but the big issue, though, that I was so drilled into my head was that of Russia. Russia was the bad guy. We were fighting communism, and after all, those that had to be taken out were Russian spies that had worked their way up into political circles. You know, in reality, all they were doing was silencing those that they were afraid would unravel their huge operation. Maybe somebody finally decided to get clean. Maybe that's what it really was. And then there's this other issue. Because see, not everything is just based on drug smuggling and things of that nature there, but there's another side of things that go on in this world as well. And in the case of the Vatican, that's to bring about a new world order. I don't know what all the purposes of these things are really for, but one thing's for sure that I am watching now, is because I've seen both, like I said, I've seen both sides of this. You know, I know very well-known, placed figures in the evangelical community that have worked to rewrite history when it comes to Pope Pius XII and have been feeding it to the evangelical community, as well as all these Jewish Congress members that have rewritten history for the Pope of Rome in order to make sure that you all follow down the New World Order path. And the thing is, friends, they don't care about you. Now, that's totally different from the Russophobia part. Of course, they're still playing the Russophobia yet today, but you have to remember the two are linked together because why? President Trump, no doubt, is working right along with the Vatican to make sure we get a New World Order. He's playing his part when it comes to Israel. And yes, Jerusalem is the capital of the Jewish people. What of it? Why is it such a big to-do? Why is it such a big to-do to bring the Golan Heights as part of Israel now? You see, everybody that is in power, they want their piece of the pie. And one thing that I see consistent, no matter what part of the arena this is in, there's always Jesuits involved. I had a Jesuit sit in my living room one day and tell me, confess to me, they didn't use the word Jesuit, but that's what they were trying to say. Perhaps you do not know, I was told, my past and my close involvement with the Cardinal. Bingo, Jesuit to me. Okay, what do you want to tell me then? I was lied to. I was tried to be recruited by them. I was tried to be drawn into their circles on multiple occasions. Why they targeted me is beyond me. I have no idea why. Chances are they knew nothing of my past, because that was kept pretty good in secret. But the odd thing is I have watched sincere, honest Christians be totally duped into believing lies, because you don't realize just how sinister these groups are. When I saw President Trump and I see all of his spiritual advisors, and some of them very openly are known to be Jesuits, working to bring the evangelical community with one mind and one accord with the Vatican when you should know better. When I am watching Israel so concerned about me exposing any further what Shimon Peres has done and what Netanyahu has done to reunite the Catholic Church with Israel and to bring about a new world order, knowing Barry Chamish personally and how he also warned me of these things that they were doing and how sinister that the government officials in Israel have been from the inception of the state of Israel. These are Israelis telling me these things, knowing all this to begin with, and I sit there and I realize this, and then I see that I expose these things and I get hit from both sides. I get hit from the Mossad agents that were working for the Vatican. I've been attacked by them, people I knew, for exposing the Vatican's relationship with Israel. And then Israel, when they figure they can't defeat me that way, what do then? They raise up Jesuits that they know to be well-known Jewish figures on alternative media, to woo you in and to bring you down, to bring you into their lies. You see, there is a major movement to bring us into a one world order. But they've got to dupe the people into believing the lies. And the thing is I know all those connections as well. I don't say I know everything, but the point is it's just odd how I ended up getting involved with people that had those types of connections. I am so leery of anyone that is a well-known minister. What I do now, I look at their connections, and I see one after another. They're either friends with the Jesuits or they're Jesuits themselves, taking us all down to a new world order. And all the things that I dealt with in my own past, it only helped me to understand just how crooked and evil the government really is, and the politicians. I'm not saying that there's not good politicians, and I'm not saying that there's not good agents, there's not good law enforcement officers. There are. I remember when I first began, I was told by an uncle of mine, he said to me, he said, Stephen, he says, you can be a good man, and you can be a good officer. He said, you're the one that makes that choice. He said, but I will tell you one thing, it'll be a lonely road for you, because there's not many that are good. That's what's troubling today, friends. There are good policemen out there, there's good FBI agents. I knew good FBI agents. There's even actually some decent CIA guys too. I've known those as well. But there's also many of them, and not to say they're not good people. They just got caught up too much into this stuff. For what reason, I don't know. Whether it was for money, popularity, who knows. Because most of these agents, they're not trying to, they weren't users. They were sure covering for they were willing to do what it took to make sure there was no exposure. They were on the inside circles. Anyway, I'll kind of hold things for now. I really get kind of troubled as I think about this. It's so much that I know. But I've got to find a way to help you guys know what's really going on. And that's what I'm going to work on. That's what I'm working on now, is finding those ways. Because once you begin to really realize the things that I'm aware of, then it'll start really making sense to you. And then you'll understand too why I speak the way I do. I know about this Russian collusion, not collusion, but this Russia-phobia thing, everything blamed on Russia. And I don't say that Russia is the best people in the world either. They got their own agents, they got the KGB. You know, my wife's family was hauled off by the KGB, you know, so I know they're just as sinister as the rest of them. But a lot of times they're just protecting something they don't want you to know about. While we all get drug into a new world order in the end. I'm Stephen Ben-Nun. You're watching Israeli News Live here on Patreon. Thank you, and thank you for your support of this channel. Erev Tov.